Patch 1.1 for ARA History Untold, The Invisible Hand, is now live, and it brings a lot of changes to the game and additions. So, we have a lot of new things like new amenities, new economy screens, update to the performance, a new leader for Canada, the Earth map, and all that cool stuff, which we will not be focusing on in this video. I know it sounds a little bit weird, but what we will focus on in this video are the balance changes to the gameplay. And before we jump into that, let me make a few things clear. First things first, you have to start a new game. The patch will not be applied if you are reloading an old game. Please start a new game to get patch 1.1 active in your game. Second, I'm kinda reading this for the first time. Yes, I have been reading through the patch notes once. I have already sorted out some thoughts, right? So this is not completely raw, but I haven't done really the math on everything. And the reality is, over the next few days, we will learn a lot about the changes and the new additions to the game. So what I want to say is, please don't be too mad if I'm not like 100% nailing what I think about the changes, because I haven't really fully tested it in the game, and this is more my theoretical view on those changes, thanks to my hundreds of hours in ARA History Untold. So with that said, let's stop yapping and jump into the changes. So let's talk about the balance adjustments. Nation and building limits. The print shop is now a nation limit increased to 3. That's good. 1 was not enough. You were always running basically out on everything the print shop was providing. Didn't like that. I think 3 is much, much better. The inns are now limited 1 per city instead of 1 per nation. That was so weird because the pubs were 1 per city and the inns were 1 per nation. Why would an inn be only be available once per nation? That made absolutely no sense from what an inn is. And also, again, the pubs were not limited to 1 per nation. So rather weird that the upgrade was basically readily available in your cities, but not the inns. So yeah, this is the right decision here. Barracks. Security set to 15 for level 1 and 15 when an expert is added. This is a nice change. Not too much. The biggest change is basically when you are putting in an expert and you are now getting a security of 25. I think this is something the community has been asking for. Security has been sometimes kind of rough to bring to a city. Like while all the other quality of lives were relatively simple to keep up, security was always a little bit of a problem. Blacksmith can now be supplied with tools and anvil goods. Anvil goods is a new item you can craft. We will get to that a little bit later down in the patch notes, but it will also increase the production rate quite a bit. The Citadel does no longer require concrete to be built, which, yeah, again, another weird thing. Like Citadel was around medieval / Renaissance age, right? And you needed concrete? Why? That didn't make a lot of sense. So that's cool. Docks production buff after adding expert reduced from 20 to 15. And I have to add this, dry dock. Default production buff increased from 10 to 20. Production buff adding an expert increased from 20 to 30. Good. This was another thing which was always weird. The docks were good enough, especially when you added an expert. And a lot of people, me sometimes included, didn't even bother to build the dry docks, to upgrade to dry docks, because the improvement wasn't really noticeable at all. And it wasn't great. It wasn't great. So yeah, they're now changing it around so that docks have still a meaning, but dry docks are clearly the upgrade. So good thing. The same goes, by the way, for the naval base. I haven't really, but it's the same thing, right? The naval base is the next update to the dry dock. Here, the same thing again. They want to give you a clear path on the upgrades. Workshop factories and crafting guilds can build anvils and mining picks. Those are the new items which were added and which will give you more production in the buildings. They're usable. I'm pretty sure that the mining picks will go to the mines, duh, right? Instead of the tools, because it was always weird that you were using like tools instead of mining picks. So there, that makes sense. Residences and skyscrapers can now use soap, improving the living standards. Cool, nice to have. Foundry and Forge can use anvils and fuse cells to increase production. Good, especially the fuse cell. Nice. Which is also new. Available for construction throughout Act 2 and 3, which is the Horsong Fortress. Interesting. I don't. Was the fortress. I think it was always available at. Was it by the end of Act 3? I can't remember anymore when this became available, I have to admit. The library is now available for construction until Act 3, extending its utility. Good. Like, missing out on some of those wonders was kind of meh. London Eye buff corrected. Security buff changed to prosperity. Yeah, that was always kind of weird that the London Eye was giving you security. The Basile's Cathedral not only provides one security per engineer artist paragon, so that's a nerf to it. Sorry for all the people who were buying it because it was pretty good and building it. The Forge can now be unlocked by precision engineering. So you are getting the Forge a little bit sooner, but before you are celebrating too early, metallurgy no longer unlocks steel. Steel crafting is postponed until later ages when forges are available. So forges are now a little bit sooner available, right? But for that, steel is coming in later, and that's good. I always found it a bit weird how, like, you got the metal bars, and then just a few researches later, you would also have the ability immediately to get steel. And yeah, it was it was a little bit too soon available. Does that really change how you are planning your production and all that? Not really. It's just you cannot start your steel production that much sooner than you actually need steel in most of your items. So it will be now much closer in what you need and when you can start producing it. Few recipe changes. So they have now reduced the production cost for the fuel, which I think is a good thing. I always found the amount of fuel production you needed was kind of excessive. Like I never liked how much you needed to produce fuel, how many buildings you needed for that, just to kind of get the fuel going, especially when you had a lot of items, a lot of buildings, a lot of units in particular starting to just demand fuel. And it always felt like even if you would focus completely on the fuel production, you never could really hit the sweet spot. So you were always like kind of tailing behind with that. Resource adjustment, Marple is now more common. Yeah, thank you. Like it was a little bit too rare, to be honest. Meteors now provide metal ingots instead of precious metals, eliminating the need for smeltering. Good. That's great. Fantastic. Obsidian, now more common. Yeah, that's also nice. I think most of those things were, especially Obsidian, were mostly available in like the tundra slash snow areas. So a lot of the civilization just stayed clear of that, and your chance to actually find Obsidian and utilize that early on was not really that easy. Tobacco yields less money than before. To be honest, expected. Tobacco could make you so much money. Like if you played it right, every tobacco farm could make you like 500 gold per turn. One tobacco farm. And if you had like 3 tobacco spots, well, you can do the math. It was a little bit crazy what you could do with it. And yeah, I can see why. I can understand that. Dragoons, lol, and Zamburaks can all be produced in Act 3. That's an act earlier than it was before. Good. They always felt kind of not worth it. I will be honest, I never did really go for them because you were this close to the machine age that you kind of just said, I get tanks next age. Why would I really do this right now? The units I have completely do what they should do. I don't need additional units. And again, tanks next stage. So yeah, I can understand to make this available and act sooner. Prestige reward. Capturing an enemy city now provides a prestige reward. Yeah, you better. Like, you put some work into that, and then the game was like, well, you got the city. What else do you want? Take the city and be happy about it. And you get no prestige for it. It's like, ugh. Especially when you were somebody who was focusing on conquering. That was a bit like a slap in the face. So glad that they added it. Horses take slightly longer to tame to balance availability. This is important for something we will talk about here in just a second. Basically, the moment you started to have a horse resource, you were kind of sad. Like, horses were just too easy to gain, right? Population tier requirements have been slightly increased, but stat penalties reduced for low level cities to gradually introduce urbanization effects. Good. So basically, you are not getting diminishing returns too early. The tax revenue, cities generate slightly more tax revenue to make governance more impactful. Yeah, this is something I was actually thinking about making a video. I made a video about this a while back where I talked about how taxes are basically the main income in this game. And the more hours I put into the game and the more I figured it out, I slowly realized that's not quite the truth. There's actually some insane way of making a lot of money from the game without needing taxes too much. Right? And funny enough, tobacco was one of the things, right? But I think this is a good change. Like, they really want that the people are focusing more on the taxes, and there were just better ways of not doing it, right? And so they're slowly trying to fix that. City leveling from 7 to 13, slower leveling for better pacing. And then level 11 to 23 receive an additional amenity slot. Makes sense. I have to admit, this level in particular is also something I noticed, that you were growing too fast at that point, and then it slowed down a lot because you got so many diminishing returns, and you felt like you couldn't really fight that anymore with the amenities. Your slots were filling up, yada yada yada. Like, yes, I agree that you were too fast in this particular area, and this needs another slot. Good, good, because the diminishing returns were becoming too crazy. Manufacturing and production changes. Factories can now manufacture toys, PDAs, and sewing machines. Those are the new items they added, which makes sense that you can build them in the factory. Workshop, crafting guilds. Hourglasses can be produced here. That is another new thing they introduced. Ceramic shop. The same goes for the mosaic tiles. Now an ingredient for many triumphs. So this is interesting. I have the feeling they wanted to not necessarily slow down, but add a new resource to build triumphs. Because most of the triumphs you could build were kind of easy to obtain. There were a few later on, if you didn't have like the advanced items for it, were of course a little bit problematic. But till that point, you were just grabbing the triumphs whenever you needed them, whenever they made sense. You were not really thinking about it. Now I have to see how many tiles you always need, right? Like if it is really a meaningful amount, or if this is just a small addition, which doesn't really matter. But I have to see that in game. But I can understand why they put it in. Clothing production, more involved to produce, but provides significantly bigger buffs. Um, I assume you need more stuff, which we will talk about in just a second here. And but you will also get like bigger buffs from the items, which we will also talk about here in a second. So let's get to it. The rope usage added as an accelerator for barrel and carriage production, good, and festival setups, good, because at a certain point you didn't need ropes anymore. Like you just didn't need them. There were just better things out there, and you just stopped production of it, which was kind of weird because, I mean, we are using ropes everywhere around us, right? Like, still. So it's like, okay, why did that disappear in the game? Didn't really make a lot of sense. They found some usage for it. I'm okay with that. Plows, substantially more expensive to produce without appropriate resources, horses or oxen. Again, makes sense, but they also increased the harvest buff from 50 to 100%, which, whoa, that's a big one. I definitely noticed that the plow, in comparison to the heavy plow, was kind of weak in what it provided. But now, I was always somebody who said, like, the moment you can get the heavy plows in the high medieval age, get the heavy plows, right? But now, with it being 100%, and I think the heavy plow was what, 150? That is still an improvement, no question. But maybe I would go for something else first, which might be more important. We have to see about that, but this is quite significant. Furs must be turned into leather and can no longer substitute for leather directly. No, was my reaction when I first saw this. I'm not gonna lie here, I was kind of abusing that. It was definitely one of the things I abused. Yeah, like every time the game was like, so you need leather to get your leather production going, or you're just throwing fur at it. And I was like, cool, I have 20 furs per turn, so yeah, not a problem for me. So great. I now have to take care of that, which of course sucks a little bit, and we will see how that goes. Sneakers can use plastic instead of leather. Yeah, that makes sense. Not they, there are the new technologies. You can see here that they're now unlocked in the different areas. What else do they have? Haberdashery reclassified from religious to industrial. Oh, interesting. But not really too meaningful. They also made some changes to the quests, which I will be completely honest here. uh, They have no influence really on how your playthrough is going, and this doesn't really matter too much. We already talked about the Dragoons and the Samburaks and the Prestige, so we have that down. And that was more or less it, right? Um, I'm also really interested now that the ceramic shops also have to focus on the mosaic tiles. This is actually bigger than I thought because your ceramic shops are limited quite a bit. And at the beginning, you already struggle what to produce. Later on, it's a little bit easier because your factories can take over certain ceramic shop items. but not all of them. But till you get to that point, you always have a problem of what to produce at them. So this could be much bigger than I first thought, right? So yeah, we will see how that goes. But all in all, this is some pretty good changes. I'm also surprised that they haven't nerfed more things, but we will probably see how that develops throughout the patch. And I'm pretty sure we will get some in between patches before we get patch 1.2. That's for sure. But this looks all pretty interesting, and I'm excited to try it out. Now, with that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it too. If you did, please leave a like. And also, if you're new to the channel and you want to see more ARA History Untold or strategy games, well, you came to the right place. Please don't forget to subscribe. I would appreciate it because we are focusing here on strategy games. With that said, have a good one. I see you soon. Stay safe. Bye-bye.